I don't think any of us knows the answer to that question. My strong instinct would be that there's no ceiling below the level of humans, right? We humans are able to understand these various patterns, and so that makes me think that if we continue to scale up these models to kind of develop new methods for training them and scaling them up, that will at least get to the level that we've gotten to with humans. There's then a question of, how much more is it possible to understand than humans do? How much is it possible to be smarter and more perceptive than humans? I would guess the answer has got to be domain dependent. If I look at an area like biology, and I wrote this essay, Machines of Loving Grace, it seems to me that humans are struggling to understand the complexity of biology, right? If you go to Stanford or to Harvard or to Berkeley, you have whole departments of, folks trying to study, like the immune system or metabolic pathways. And each person understands only a tiny bit part of it, specializes, and they're struggling to combine their knowledge with that of other humans. And so I have an instinct that there's a lot of room at the top for AIs to get smarter. If I think of something like materials in the physical world, or like addressing conflicts between humans or something like that, I mean, it may be there's only some of these problems are not intractable but much harder, and it may be that there's only so well you can do at some of these things, right? Just like with speech recognition, there's only so clear I can hear your speech. So I think in some areas there may be ceilings in that are very close to what humans have done. In other areas, those ceilings may be very far away. And I think we'll only find out when we build these systems. It's very hard to know in advance. We can speculate, but we can't be sure.
And in some domains, the ceiling might have to do with human bureaucracies and things like this, as you write about.
Yes.
So humans fundamentally have to be part of the loop. That's the cause of the ceiling, not maybe the limits of the intelligence.
Yeah, I think in many cases, in theory, technology could change very fast. For example, all the things that we might invent with respect to biology. But remember, there's a clinical trial system that we have to go through to actually administer these things to humans. I think that's a mixture of things that are unnecessary and bureaucratic and things that kind of protect the integrity of society. And the whole challenge is that it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what's going on. It's hard to tell which is which, right? My view is definitely, I think, in terms of drug development, my view is that we're too slow and we're too conservative. But certainly, if you get these things wrong, it's possible to risk people's lives by being too reckless. And so at least some of these human institutions are in fact protecting people. So it's all about finding the balance. I strongly suspect that balance is kind of more on the side of pushing to make things happen faster, but there is a balance.
If we do hit a limit, if we do hit a slowdown in the scaling laws, what do you think would be the reason? Is it compute limited, data limited? Is it something else? Idea limited?
So a few things. Now we're talking about hitting the limit before we get to the level of humans and the skill of humans. So I think one that's popular today, and I think, could be a limit that we run into. Like most of the limits, I would bet against it, but it's definitely possible, is we simply run out of data. There's only so much data on the internet, and there's issues with the quality of the data, right? You can get hundreds of trillions of words on the internet, but a lot of it is repetitive, or it's search engine optimization drivel, or maybe in the future it'll even be text generated by AIs itself. And so I think there are limits to what can be produced in this way. That said, we, and I would guess other companies, are working on ways to make data synthetic, where you can use the model to generate more data of the type that you have already, or even generate data from scratch. If you think about what was done with DeepMind's AlphaGo Zero, they managed to get a bot all the way from no ability to play Go whatsoever to above human level just by playing against itself. There was no example data from humans required in the AlphaGo Zero version of it. The other direction, of course, is these reasoning models that do chain of thought and stop to think, and reflect on their own thinking. In a way, that's another kind of synthetic data coupled with reinforcement learning. So my guess is with one of those methods, we'll get around the data limitation, or there may be other sources of data that are available. We could just observe that even if there's no problem with data, as we start to scale models up, they just stop getting better. It seemed to be a reliable observation that they've gotten better. That could just stop at some point for a reason we don't understand. The answer could be that we need to, we need to invent some new architecture. There have been problems in the past with, say, numerical stability of models, where it looked like things were leveling off, but actually, when we found the right unblocker, they didn't end up doing so. So perhaps there's some new optimization method or some new technique we need to unblock things. I've seen no evidence of that so far, but if things were to slow down, that perhaps could be one reason.
What about the limits of compute, meaning the expensive nature of building bigger and bigger data centers?
So right now, I think most of the frontier model companies, I would guess, are operating in roughly $1 billion scale plus or minus a factor of 3. Right, those are the models that exist now or are being trained now. I think next year we're going to go to a few billion, and then 2026 we may go to above 10 billion, and probably by 2027 there are ambitions to build $100 billion clusters. And I think all of that actually will happen. There's a lot of determination to build the compute to do it within this country. And I would guess that it actually does happen. Now, if we get to 100 billion, that's still not enough compute, that's still not enough scale, then either we need even more scale or we need to develop some way of doing it more efficiently, of shifting the curve. I think between all of these, one of the reasons I'm bullish about powerful AI happening so fast is just that if you extrapolate the next few points on the curve, we're very quickly getting towards human level ability, right? Some of the new models that we developed, some reasoning models that have come from other companies, they're starting to get to what I would call the PhD or professional level, right? If you look at their coding ability, the latest model we released, Sonnet 3.5, the new or updated version, it gets something like 50% on SWE-bench. And SWE-bench is an example of a bunch of professional real-world software engineering tasks. At the beginning of the year, I think the state of the art was 3 or 4%. So in 10 months, we've gone from 3% to 50% on this task. And I think in another year, we'll probably be at 90%. I mean, I don't know, but might even be less than that. We've seen similar things in graduate level math, physics, and biology from models like OpenAI's O1. If we just continue to extrapolate this, right, in terms of skill that we have, I think if we extrapolate the straight curve, within a few years, we will get to these models being, above the highest professional level in terms of humans. Now, will that curve continue? You've pointed to, and I've pointed to, a lot of reasons why, possible reasons why that might not happen. But if the extrapolation curve continues, that is the trajectory we're on.